Hello everyone. I'm going to argue whether or not it's ethical for social media companies to keep and use user information. But before I talk about that, first it's important to consider the ethical standards that we would expect social media companies to uphold. So first, it is a responsibility of social media sites to protect user information because we value privacy. For example, Instagram should not release their users' information to third-party companies. Second, it is the responsibility of social media sites to keep user information private because we uphold security, or vice versa, the first one, security, the second one, privacy. And in this case, an example would be Facebook should not release user profile information to companies that the user has applied to for jobs. And the third is it is the responsibility of social media sites to ask for consent for their services. So now that I've stated the ethical standards, let's get into what should be versus what is. So given these ethical standards that social media companies should protect their users' information and keep that information private, I think it's safe to assume that social media companies should follow these rules to uphold these standards. So the rules are that these social media companies must hire cybersecurity professionals, they must have large servers, they must have profiles that require users to use two-step authentication. Social media companies must give their user the option to make certain parts of their information public or private. And social media companies must have a system of being checked or audited by another company in order to ensure that any research that it conducts is consensual. Okay, great. So now that we have some things to work off of, let's get to the actual argument. For those who forgot, it's whether or not it's ethical for social media companies to keep and use user information. So let's start with whether it's ethical. This is with the consideration of my previously stated arguments. So why should social media companies keep and use user information? Well, in order to better serve the user and provide a more outstanding social media experience, it is helpful that the social media companies keep user information. This way, social media sites can provide advertisements that adhere to their customers' characteristics and behaviors, and even suggest other people that their customers can connect with based on their account activity and other accounts that they interact with. Also, users are agreeing to use of service that is being provided to them. So whatever the service provides is a privilege as opposed to a right. If the social media company secures their information, it's not necessarily the requirement. There are plenty of examples. So, for example, Facebook and Instagram use your likes to gear ads towards your specific likes, so it helps make the experience less tedious for the user. Cookies are also something that social media companies like Facebook like to use to improve their security without having to bother their customers with other security measures, but it does take away from your privacy. But all in all, despite the fact that these companies are doing this in order to help make the experience better for their users, at the end of the day, users do sign and agree to the terms and conditions of the service. So by saying you agree, you give social media sites the consent to use that information however they please. Which brings me to the other argument. Why shouldn't social media companies keep and use user information? Well, social media companies are responsible for the data that they are provided because it's the user's private information, and users have a right to privacy. Although customers are using their service, their social media profiles are their private space, and anything they message, post, or comment should be treated as private. It's also a threat to the user's security if social media companies do not properly secure a user's information. For example, Hackers can actively hack into different Facebook user accounts and steal a user's information, diminishing the quality of the social media service. This in turn causes a user to not use Facebook or any other kind of social media company in question anymore due to security faults. Not too long ago, Snapchat suffered a security breach that affected its 4.6 million users because the pictures that these users were taking were downloaded to a website called snapchatdb.info. Even Facebook is able to track their users' information, such as passages they visit on the internet, what pages users visit within Facebook, and what users are posting about, as well as chat conversations. Facebook keeps user data even after they opt out of their service, specifically private messages and pictures that users were tagged in. So now that both points have been explained, the question needs to be asked again: is it ethical for social media companies to use user information? Well, if we look back at the standards, I think it's safe to say that it isn't, given that we, and by we I mean American society, value privacy and security. It is unethical for social media companies to use user information when, one, the information is being shared to other companies for monetary gain, and two, the security of these sites are not up to the standards that they should be, based solely on how often they are hacked and the private information they hold. It's true that it is a person's personal choice to use these services, but given the prevalence and presence of social media, it's difficult not to, and these companies should hold a high standard for themselves given society's overall values.